In 2003, a stolen private tape detonated like a bomb, turning Paris Hilton from tabloid curiosity into the internet's first scandal-era icon. Overnight, the heiress who smiled through red carpets was reframed as a party girl, built for outrage clicks. Then came 2006-2007, duos, probation, and a brief stint in county jail. Images of a teary Paris in a beige prison jumpsuit looped on every network. Proof, to many, that the socialite era had finally eaten one of its own. But that wasn't the end. As the world laughed, Paris pivoted. She packaged persona into product, reality TV into reach, and notoriety into negotiating power, building a fragrance and licensing empire reported to have generated billions in global sales. The scandal everyone thought would finish her instead became a blueprint for monetizing fame in the social media age. How did a leaked tape and a mugshot become the raw materials of a business machine? And how did Paris Hilton rewrite herself from punchline to powerhouse? Paris Whitney Hilton was born on February 17, 1981, in New York City, the eldest of 4 children in one of America's most recognizable dynasties. Her father, Richard Hilton, was a successful businessman in real estate, while her mother, Kathy Hilton, carried Hollywood lineage as the half-sister of Kim and Kyle Richards from The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. The Hilton family name carried with it both wealth and expectation. Paris grew up in the shadow of the Hilton Hotels empire. With privilege and scrutiny interwoven into her upbringing, raised primarily between Manhattan and Beverly Hills, Paris was surrounded by extravagance. She attended elite schools such as the Dwight School in New York and later the prestigious Canterbury boarding school in Connecticut. But despite the polished exterior, her early years were not free from turbulence. In later years, Paris revealed she had been sent to correctional boarding schools for rebellious behavior, where she endured harsh discipline and emotional trauma, experiences she would later describe as formative to her resilience. From an early age, Paris was captivated by the glamour of fashion and entertainment. Modeling opportunities came quickly. She signed with Donald Trump's agency, T Management. At just 19, her statuesque figure and striking looks earned her attention on catwalks and magazine covers. But Paris seemed destined for more than just modeling. She craved recognition, a place in pop culture that would allow her to craft her own legacy rather than simply inherit one. Family dynamics shaped much of her identity. While her parents provided financial stability, the Hilton name often came with pressure to embody an image of class and tradition. Paris, however, leaned into rebellion, preferring nightlife and celebrity circles over business meetings and etiquette lessons. By the late 1990s, she had already made a name for herself as a fixture in New York's social scene, attending the city's most exclusive clubs and mingling with celebrities twice her age. Her privileged but turbulent childhood, blending wealth, trauma, and rebellion, set the stage for the persona the world would soon know, a blonde heiress who transformed notoriety into a global brand. Paris Hilton's education mirrored her complicated adolescence, caught between privilege and rebellion. She attended several elite schools, including the Dwight School in Manhattan and later the Canterbury School in Connecticut. But her restless spirit and love for nightlife led her parents to send her to a series of correctional boarding schools, the most notorious being Provo Canyon School in Utah. Years later, Paris would reveal the abuse and mistreatment she endured there, trauma that left lasting scars but also a fierce determination to reclaim her narrative. By her late teens, Paris had already shifted her focus from traditional education to the pursuit of fame. With striking looks and undeniable charisma, she signed with Donald Trump's modeling agency, T Management, in 1999. Within months, she appeared in fashion magazines like Vogue and Vanity Fair, walking runways for top designers and building a name for herself as a rising socialite model. Yet modeling was only a gateway. Paris instinctively understood that celebrity in the new millennium was no longer tied strictly to talent but to presence and persona. Alongside her younger sister Nikki, she became a fixture in Manhattan's nightclub scene, photographed constantly by paparazzi eager to capture her nightlife escapades. By 2000, She was dubbed New York's leading it girl, a title that reflected both admiration and ridicule. What separated Paris from other wealthy socialites was her ability to harness media attention. While others recoiled from tabloid scrutiny, she leaned into it, deliberately cultivating an image of glamour, excess, and mystery. She studied the mechanics of fame before the age of Instagram, understanding that visibility itself was power. Her early career was built less on conventional milestones and more on cultural positioning. Paris Hilton wasn't just a young heiress modeling clothes, she was already experimenting with the idea of being famous for being famous. This unconventional path would soon catapult her into global notoriety, as scandals in reality television transformed her from New York's party girl into the most recognizable face of a new celebrity era. The early 2000s were a cultural shift, and Paris Hilton was its unlikely architect. Her turning point came in 2003 with the premiere of The Simple Life, a reality show pairing her with best friend Nicole Richie. The premise was simple: two wealthy socialites attempting to live and work in small-town America, but its impact was massive. Paris, with her deadpan delivery of phrases like, "That's hot," became a pop culture phenomenon. The Simple Life ran for 5 seasons, cementing her as the face of a new kind of fame, celebrity as entertainment itself. That same year, however, Paris was thrust into the spotlight for a very different reason. A private tape, leaked without her consent, went viral just as her reality show debuted. The scandal might have destroyed another career, but Paris used the infamy to her advantage. The tape and the show combined to make her one of the most recognizable figures on earth. Rather than retreat, she leaned into her party girl persona, mastering the art of turning notoriety into relevance. By the mid-2000s, Paris Hilton had become the template for modern celebrity branding. She launched her first fragrance in 2004, which became a runaway success, eventually spawning an empire of over 25 perfumes that generated billions in revenue. Clothing lines, handbags, and accessories followed, with her name licensed in over 50 countries. What critics dismissed as frivolous branding was, in fact, a shrewd business model that allowed her to transform tabloid mockery into financial power. Musically, Paris experimented as well. In 2006, she released her debut album, Paris, featuring the single, "Stars Are Blind." Though critics scoffed, the track became a surprise international hit and later earned a cult following, cementing her ability to cross into music. If only briefly, Paris also became a staple of global nightlife. She was paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to appear at clubs and events, pioneering what is now the standard practice of celebrity paid appearances. Later, she would pivot to DJing, performing at major festivals and venues, once again capitalizing on her ability to command attention across industries. Her rise was not without detractors. Many accused her of being famous for nothing, but that was precisely her innovation. Paris Hilton redefined fame as its own commodity, showing a generation that visibility could be monetized just as effectively as talent. She wasn't just a reality star or an heiress, she was the prototype for influencers. A blueprint later followed by Kim Kardashian, whom Paris once employed as her stylist. By the late 2000s, Paris Hilton had transcended her scandals to become a brand, with an estimated fortune that surprised those who dismissed her as a fleeting tabloid star. The very qualities that critics mocked, her baby voice, her catchphrases, her love of excess, were the foundation of a business empire. She had turned mockery into money, and controversy into cultural power. What began as a reality show gimmick and a scandalous tape had evolved into a global empire. Paris Hilton, once written off as a spoiled heiress, had proven that she could bend pop culture to her will, and cash in on it spectacularly. For Paris Hilton, love and relationships were never private matters. They unfolded like storylines in the reality show of her life, magnified by paparazzi lenses and tabloid covers. Every romance became a headline, every breakup a scandal, and every engagement a spectacle. In her early 20s, Paris dated a string of high-profile men, from Leonardo DiCaprio to Nick Carter of the Backstreet Boys. Her relationship with Carter was particularly tumultuous, marked by tabloid reports of partying, jealousy, and public drama. She was also linked to Greek shipping heirs Paris Latsis and Stavros Niarchos, both relationships reinforcing her image as the ultimate it girl, surrounded by wealth and extravagance. In 2005, Paris accepted a proposal from Latsis, but the engagement lasted only 4 months before collapsing under media scrutiny. For many, it seemed that Paris was addicted not just to love, but to the spectacle of love. Each highly publicized romance fed her celebrity machine, but it also left her with a reputation for instability and superficiality. Her love life took another controversial turn in 2018, when she became engaged to actor Chris Zilka. The $2 million engagement ring made headlines, but once again, the relationship crumbled before reaching the altar. Paris later admitted she had rushed into the decision, acknowledging that years of tabloid-fueled romances had left her chasing fairy tale ideals that rarely matched reality. Behind the headlines, however, Paris longed for stability. In interviews, she often spoke about her desire to find true love and build a family of her own. Contrasting sharply with her party girl image, that dream finally materialized in 2019, when she began dating venture capitalist Carter Room. Their relationship was markedly different, more private, more grounded, and less performative than her past romances. In 2021, Carter proposed, and Paris celebrated the milestone with a wedding that combined old Hollywood glamour with modern spectacle. The ceremony, attended by A-list guests and streamed as part of her docuseries Paris in Love, symbolized a turning point. The socialite once mocked for failed engagements had finally found her partner. In 2023, Paris and Carter welcomed their first child via surrogate, marking another chapter in her evolution from tabloid starlet to businesswoman and mother. Her love life, much like her career, has been a saga of reinvention. From high-profile flings to broken engagements, Paris Hilton transformed her romantic narrative into one of eventual stability. For decades, the tabloids portrayed her as a woman defined by excess and scandal. Today, she positions herself as a wife, mother, and survivor of both public scrutiny and personal missteps. Paris Hilton's career is inseparable from scandal. Unlike many celebrities who crumble under controversy, Paris seemed to thrive in it, turning public humiliation into publicity. Yet the cost of those years was immense, with the most infamous moments of her life becoming cultural touchstones of early 2000s tabloid culture. The defining scandal came in 2003, when a private tape with then-boyfriend Rick Solomon was leaked without her consent. The timing was explosive, just weeks before The Simple Life premiered. The footage spread online, an era when viral celebrity scandals were still new, and instantly rebranded Paris from heiress model to the face of sex tape infamy. Though the ordeal was deeply personal and exploitative, it paradoxically amplified her fame. Critics mocked her, moralists condemned her, but the media couldn't look away. What could have ended a career instead propelled her into superstardom, solidifying her status as a household name. But the tape was only the beginning. By the mid-2000s, Paris had become synonymous with party girl culture. Paparazzi captured her nightly exits from clubs in Los Angeles, New York, and Las Vegas, often flanked by Nicole Richie, Lindsay Lohan, or Kim Kardashian. She was arrested multiple times for reckless driving, DUI, and violating probation. In 2007, she served a brief sentence at the Century Regional Detention Facility in Linwood, California. Images of her crying in the back of a police car and later walking into jail in designer sunglasses became iconic symbols of the tabloid era. Her arrests painted her as reckless and spoiled, feeding the media narrative that Paris was famous for nothing but bad behavior. Headlines branded her the Queen of Scandal, and late-night comedians turned her into a punchline. For years, her persona was reduced to a caricature, the ditzy blonde who partied too hard and cared too little. Yet beneath the glossy scandal, darker truths lingered. In her 2020 documentary This Is Paris, she revealed years of trauma from abusive treatment at Provo Canyon School. a correctional facility for troubled teens. She described being subjected to physical and emotional abuse, screaming, beatings, solitary confinement. For Paris, the rebellious party girl image had roots not in carefree excess but in unprocessed trauma and a desperate attempt to mask pain. The revelation shocked fans, reframing her past scandals not as mere attention-seeking but as the byproduct of deeper wounds. Still, Paris wielded her scandals strategically. She trademarked her catchphrases, turned paparazzi attention into product launches, and monetized her "bad girl" reputation through endorsements and appearances. What her critics dismissed as chaos, she reframed as branding. However, the personal toll was undeniable. Her credibility as an actress, musician, or traditional entertainer was undercut by her scandals, pigeonholing her as a tabloid figure rather than a serious performer. The tragedy of Paris Hilton's scandal era lies in the paradox it created. The very events that could have destroyed her gave her unparalleled fame. Yet they also trapped her in a persona that took decades to escape. For years, she was mocked as shallow, scandalous, and talentless, even as she quietly built a billion-dollar business empire behind the scenes. Her story exposes the dark mechanics of celebrity culture in the 2000s, when women's mistakes, or even their victimization, were consumed as mass entertainment. Paris Hilton was both architect and casualty of that era, a woman who turned scandal into power while paying the price in dignity and reputation. By the early 2010s, the world seemed ready to move on from Paris Hilton. Reality television had a new star in her former assistant, Kim Kardashian. The "party girl" image that once made her famous was now mocked as dated. Many critics declared Paris irrelevant, a relic of a bygone tabloid era. But while the spotlight shifted, Paris was quietly rewriting her narrative. Instead of chasing another reality show or nightclub scandal, she pivoted to business. Paris had already launched her fragrance line in 2004, but over the years, it grew into a global powerhouse. Her perfumes alone reportedly generated over $3 billion in revenue, outselling legacy brands and proving that her name still held enormous commercial power. From clothing and handbags to skincare and sunglasses, she licensed her brand to more than 50 countries. By the mid-2010s, Paris Hilton was no longer just a celebrity, she was a business mogul. She also found success in a surprising arena, electronic music. Paris reinvented herself as a DJ, performing at top clubs in Ibiza and festivals worldwide. Though initially ridiculed, she gradually earned respect within the industry, commanding six-figure fees per set. Her presence on the global nightlife scene, once synonymous with reckless partying, had transformed into a lucrative performance career. The turning point in her personal image came in 2020 with the release of the documentary This Is Paris. For the first time, Paris revealed the trauma of her teenage years, describing the abuse she endured at Provo Canyon School. The revelation reframed her "party girl" persona, offering context for her rebellious behavior and opening conversations about abuse in troubled teen facilities. Audiences who once dismissed her as shallow began to see her as a survivor, a woman who had endured pain while building an empire from the ashes of scandal. Public sympathy shifted dramatically. Instead of being ridiculed, Paris was celebrated for her resilience and candor. She began advocating for reform in youth facilities, testifying before legislatures and supporting other survivors. The transformation from scandal-ridden heiress to activist businesswoman marked one of the most dramatic image turnarounds in pop culture. Her personal life also reflected change. In 2021, Paris married venture capitalist Carter Room in a lavish yet heartfelt ceremony. The wedding was documented in her series Paris in Love, but this time, the coverage felt different, less like a publicity stunt and more like a celebration of stability. In 2023, Paris became a mother via surrogate, a milestone that symbolized her transition from "it girl" to matriarch. Paris Hilton's comeback was not about returning to reality TV dominance or chasing headlines. It was about reclaiming control of her story. She had survived scandal, ridicule, and exploitation, only to emerge as a successful entrepreneur. respected DJ, and advocate for survivors of abuse. What once looked like the end of her relevance had instead become the foundation of her reinvention. Today, Paris Hilton lives in a world far removed from the chaotic tabloids of the early 2000s. Once dismissed as a party girl who embodied excess, she is now recognized as a savvy entrepreneur, mother, and advocate. Her fragrance empire remains one of the most profitable celebrity beauty ventures in history. Her DJ career commands international stages, and her name continues to resonate globally as both a brand and a cultural symbol. Personally, Paris has embraced the stability she once seemed to chase in vain. Her marriage to Carter Room has been marked by warmth rather than spectacle, and the arrival of her children represents a chapter of grounded fulfillment. For fans who watched her stumble through scandals and heartbreak, this evolution feels like both redemption and reward. But Paris has also redefined her voice beyond business and family. Through her documentary and activism, she has shed light on abusive practices in youth correctional facilities, working with lawmakers to pursue reforms. For many, this advocacy proves that her influence extends beyond glamour, that she is using her platform to champion change. And yet, questions linger. Will Paris Hilton forever be remembered as the original, famous for being famous, celebrity? The prototype for today's influencer generation? Or will her legacy shift toward being seen as a pioneer who turned scandal into empire and used fame as a tool for reinvention? At 40+, Paris Hilton stands as a paradox, a survivor of ridicule who became a blueprint for modern celebrity. A woman once defined by scandal now shaping her own destiny. Whether she chooses to expand her business empire, return to television, or focus solely on family and advocacy, her story is proof that reinvention is not only possible but powerful. For Paris Hilton, the simple question remains: is this the final act of a notorious heiress, or just the beginning of a legacy she is only now writing on her own terms?